seconds of Sunday's final, you trying to become the oldest Grand Slam champion, record owned by an Australian great, and Carlos trying to become the youngest man to. How do you assess that in terms of great important matches?
Well, there's always, for me, I think also obviously for Carlos because of his age and everything that he was able to achieve so far. History is on the line for both of us every time we play. I mean, the finals of Grand Slam, there's a lot at stake, but it's no different from any other big match that I play. My preparation is as it should be, and I won against him last year here, also in a grueling match. So let's see how fresh are we both able to be. He also had a big match, but he's got about 16 years on me, so biologically I think it's going to be a bit easier for him to recover.
Novak Djokovic just demolished Jannik Sinner in one of the most dominant performances of his career. And immediately afterward, he sent a very clear message to Carlos Alcaraz ahead of their Australian Open final. What Djokovic said in the press conference reveals exactly how he's approaching this matchup. And honestly, Carlos should be paying attention to every single word. Do you think Novak Djokovic's experience and mental game will beat Carlos Alcaraz's youth and athleticism in the Australian Open final, or is the younger generation finally taking over? Drop your prediction below.
Djokovic dethrones Sinner, and the King of Melbourne is back in the final.
Novak Djokovic just put on an absolute masterclass against Jannik Sinner in the Australian Open semifinals, and the tennis world is still trying to process what they just witnessed. John McEnroe, who's seen pretty much everything in tennis history, said afterward that you could make an argument this was Djokovic's finest ever performance. That's an absolutely massive statement when you're talking about someone who's won 24 Grand Slam titles.
Thank you for coming, guys. Really nice to have improvised media.
Congratulations. John McEnroe said on the coverage afterwards you could make an argument that this was your finest ever performance. That's a pretty big call for someone that's won 24 slams. I'm just wondering, with everything you've been through over the years, where this win sits.
To be honest, I wouldn't dare to call it finest ever, but definitely the finest in the last couple of years. Under the circumstances and semis against, Sinner, who has been playing best tennis of his life in the last couple of years, particularly here, two-time defending champion. Doesn't get better than this. I mean, honestly, when I started my preparations for the new season and kind of set the goals, and it's no secret that Grand Slams are where I want to play my best tennis, but it becomes, I guess, more difficult for me to motivate myself, and I ask myself questions. Okay, what is it that I'm looking for myself? And I was imagining really playing against Jannik and Carlos at the final stages of Grand Slams this year, and battling it out and really giving it all that I have. So very fortunate to already get it in the first slam of the year.
But what happened in the press conference after the match is almost as interesting as the match itself. Because Djokovic didn't just talk about beating Sinner. He made it very clear that he's been preparing specifically for this moment, specifically for facing the next generation at the final stages of Grand Slams. And Carlos Alcaraz should absolutely be taking notes. When a reporter asked Djokovic where this win sits among everything he's accomplished, his answer was revealing. He said, "To be honest, I wouldn't dare to call it my finest ever, but definitely the finest in the last couple of years." Then he explained why this particular win mattered so much to him. He talked about how when he started preparing for the new season and setting his goals, he knew Grand Slams are where he wants to play his best tennis. But here's the interesting part. He said it's becoming more difficult for him to motivate himself, and he asks himself questions about what he's looking for. That's Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest competitors in sports history, admitting that finding motivation is getting harder. Which makes sense when you've already won everything there is to win multiple times over. What else is there to prove? What else is there to chase? But then he revealed his answer. He said he was imagining playing against Sinner and Alcaraz at the final stages of Grand Slams this year and battling it out and giving everything he has. That was his motivation. Not winning another title just for the sake of adding to his collection, but specifically beating the young stars who are supposed to be taking over the sport. And he got exactly what he wanted in the very first Grand Slam of the year. He beat the defending two-time Australian Open champion Sinner in the semifinals, and now he gets Alcaraz in the final. That's the dream scenario he was visualizing during his off-season preparation. The way Djokovic talked about this match against Sinner was almost like he was describing a personal validation. He called it a big win that he's very proud of, very happy about, but also very relieved because it was physically demanding and grueling. That relief is important because it suggests there was genuine doubt about whether he could still perform at this level against the absolute best young players in the world. When someone brought up the legendary 2012 Australian Open final against Rafael Nadal and asked how Djokovic plans to recover for the final in just 2 days, his response was brutally honest. He said, "I don't know. Let's see. It's almost 3 a.m. I cannot make any predictions right now. Definitely not going to train tomorrow. Just going to use every hour I possibly can to recover and hopefully get out on finals day feeling somewhat refreshed." That's not the answer of someone who's supremely confident in their physical condition. That's the answer of a 37-year-old who just played one of the most intense matches of his life and genuinely doesn't know if his body will cooperate 2 days later. But then Djokovic shifted gears and started talking about all the people who have doubted him and tried to retire him over the past couple of years. And this is where you can really see the competitive fire that's kept him at the top for so long. He said, "There's a lot of people that doubt me. I see there's a lot of experts all of a sudden that wanted to retire me or have retired me many times the last couple of years. But I want to thank them all because they gave me strength. They gave me motivation to prove them wrong, which I have tonight." That's classic Djokovic, taking external criticism and doubt and transforming it into fuel. He's been doing this his entire career, and apparently it still works even at 37 years old. Then he said something that should probably worry Carlos Alcaraz a little bit. He said, "For me, it's not a surprise, to be honest. I know what I'm capable of." That's the confidence of someone who's been in this exact position dozens of times before. Someone who knows that when he's locked in mentally and physically, he can still beat anyone in the world. Djokovic also addressed the contrast between his performance 2 days earlier and this dominant showing against Sinner. He explained that he's had many matches during Grand Slams where it's just one of those days when you're not feeling your best, but you try to find a way to win with everything you have, even though the quality of tennis isn't close to where you want it to be. That's the experience gap between Djokovic and the younger generation. Sinner and Alcaraz are incredibly talented, but they don't have the same mental library of different types of wins. They haven't had to grind through as many different scenarios and situations. Djokovic has won ugly matches, beautiful matches, emotional matches, physical matches, tactical matches, every variation you can think of. When asked to rate this performance, Djokovic clarified that it's the best of the last couple of years, and definitely one of the best of the last decade. But then he added context that matters for the final. He said he knew exactly what to expect against Sinner, and he came out with great clarity on strategy and game plan. The key phrase there is easier said than done. Djokovic acknowledged that imagining how you want to play is completely different from actually executing it on court against someone playing at Sinner's level. But he did it. He executed almost perfectly for nearly 4 hours against the defending champion. Now we get to the part where Djokovic directly addresses the upcoming final against Alcaraz. A reporter asked about the historical significance of the match, Djokovic trying to become the oldest Grand Slam champion ever, a record currently held by Australian legend Ken Rosewall, while Alcaraz is trying to become the youngest man to complete the career Grand Slam. Djokovic's response was measured but confident. He said that for him and for Alcaraz, history is on the line every time they play a Grand Slam final because of what they've both achieved. But then he made a comment that's either gamesmanship or just honest assessment, depending on how you want to interpret it. He said, "Let's see how fresh we both are able to be." He also had a big match, but he's got about 15, 16 years on me. So biologically, I think it's going to be a bit easier for him to recover. On the surface, that sounds like Djokovic acknowledging a disadvantage. But think about what he's actually doing there. He's lowering expectations for himself while simultaneously putting pressure on Alcaraz. He's saying, I'm old, I'm tired, I might not be at my best, which gives him an excuse if he loses, but makes it even more impressive if he wins. Meanwhile, he's subtly telling Alcaraz and everyone watching that Carlos should have a recovery advantage because of his age, which means if Alcaraz doesn't come out fresh and energetic, it'll look bad. And if Djokovic somehow matches or exceeds Alcaraz's energy level, despite being nearly 20 years older, that's a massive psychological blow. Djokovic also referenced their match from last year at the Australian Open, mentioning that he won in a grueling battle. That's a reminder to Alcaraz and to everyone watching that Novak has beaten Carlos in this exact situation before, in this exact tournament, and he knows how to do it. Then Djokovic made what might be the most important statement of the entire press conference. He said, I play tennis competitively mainly to be able to reach the finals of Grand Slams. And here I am. So I cannot complain about anything. I'm just trying to enjoy the moment that I'm experiencing tonight. I'll think about the finals later. But for me, this win almost equals winning a Grand Slam. That last line is crucial. The win over Sinner almost equals winning a Grand Slam. That's how much it meant to Djokovic to prove he can still beat the absolute best young players in the world. Which means the final against Alcaraz is almost like a bonus round. He's already achieved his main goal by reaching this point. That mindset could be incredibly dangerous for Alcaraz because Djokovic is going into the final with the pressure already released. He's already proven what he wanted to prove. Anything that happens in the final is extra. Meanwhile, Alcaraz is trying to complete the career Grand Slam before his 22nd birthday, which is massive pressure. The contrast in how these two players are approaching this final is fascinating. Djokovic is the aging champion trying to prove he's not done yet, using doubt and criticism as motivation, playing with house money after beating Sinner. Alcaraz is the young superstar trying to cement his legacy, dealing with the pressure of making history and facing an opponent who's already beaten him in this exact situation before. Djokovic's comments also reveal his broader strategy for this stage of his career. He's not trying to win every tournament, he's not trying to reclaim #1 in the rankings, he's specifically targeting Grand Slam finals against the next generation. That's his legacy project now, showing that even at 37, even after everyone's tried to write him off, he can still beat the best young players on the biggest stages. And honestly, that's a pretty smart approach. Instead of grinding through the entire tour trying to prove he's still elite week after week, he's conserving energy and focusing everything on the tournaments that actually matter to his legacy. 4 Grand Slams per year. That's it. Show up, peak at the right time, and prove the doubters wrong. The message to Alcaraz is clear. Djokovic is not intimidated by youth or athleticism. He's not concerned about the narrative that it's time for the changing of the guard. He's coming into this final with the mentality of someone who's already won the moral victory by beating Sinner, which makes him incredibly dangerous. Alcaraz has the physical advantages, he's faster, he's more explosive, he recovers quicker. But Djokovic has the experience, the mental toughness, the tactical awareness, and most importantly right now, the momentum of having just produced one of the best performances of his entire career. So Novak Djokovic just sent a very clear message to Carlos Alcaraz. Age and doubt don't matter when you can still execute at the highest level against the best players in the world. This Australian Open final is going to be absolutely incredible. If you want expert tennis analysis without the fluff, smash that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns of the biggest matches.